Good to see you.
Alright there, Revenants, welcome back to Code Vein, and I'd like to kind of chat through what this mystery multiplier is with Final Journey. This is one of the gifts in the game that kind of fluctuates as a floating point precision number, and it's not always 1.5 multiplier, and it's a little bit strange because sometimes it is exactly 1.5 and other times it floats a little high. So it's one of the very few bonuses in the game that actually will allow you to go above what the multiplier actually is, and it's very select and it's not all the time. And so today I've picked the Ivory Grace here, or the Snowy Elegance or whatever, because when it's used with Cognitive Zeal, we get a 1203, and then when we use Final Journey, this goes to an 1804 for our light value. So it is a very even, nice round number, which we can easily divide by 2, which is 902. And so that is a very easy number, basically adding 900 to whatever value we're going to have here. So what in the world are we talking about here? So we know that Final Journey gives a 1.5 times multiplier to your light and dark value. When you have it active, it also gives a 1.5 times multiplier to your weapon damage as well as your Veil Drain attack values here. So keep that in mind, but this is not always exactly 1.5. Sometimes it does float above, and I've narrowed it by Newton's method of all things down to 1.5008. And that number will come into question quite a bit, but it is the number of most convergence for the numbers to actually work out for the values on the card here that you're going to see. So let's start with a 100% weapon. Now, the Zweihander is a 100% weapon, meaning that if you see 1797 on the card, on your first strike, you will see that number on the bag. So that's a really simple way to check out your values if you need. Another weapon that you can do is the Argent Wolf Kingblade. So if you see 1855 there, on the bag, you're going to see 1855 on your first strike. So keep that in mind. So we are going to set this up here, and we're going with an A strength just because it makes it even across the board here. So if we look at our 1797 and we put it through the notepad here, so if we look at 1797 and we multiply it by 1.5, and then we add our 1804 divided by 2, which is our 902 from Bridge to Glory, that should equal 1797 times 1.5 plus 902. Whoops, plus 902. There we go. 3597 and a half. So that should round up to 3598, right? That is what we should expect out of this if we do Bridge and Final Journey at the same time, right? So 3598, and we do indeed get 3598 on the bag. So if we add in our two-handed sword mastery here, so that should be back over on here, we should just multiply this by 1.2, and we know that value that should come out to let's see here, times 1.2, so 4136.6, and that should round to 4137, right? That's what we should expect from these numbers. So if we do this, and then we strike the bag, 4137, remember, and there's 4137. So that is, it comes out very nicely. Now, let's go over to our halberd here, and we'll pick up our halberd mastery. And so that you saw there, our base value was 1105, right? That is what we are loaded up here with, and so we'll we'll put the halberd mastery on here, and so 1326, and that should make sense, right? Because 1105 times 1.2 is 1326 even, right? Okay, so now if we put this back into our notepad here, so this number now is 1105, and those numbers are going to be the same, and this should come out to be 1105 times 1.2 times 1.5 plus 902. That should be 2891. That is an exact number. There is no precision in that. Those all come out to be exact numbers. That is what we should expect, right? 2891. Well, let's go ahead and do it. So this, and final journey. And well, lo and behold, what does our number look like? 2892. So how in the world can this, not be equal to 2892? What happened there? Well, if you take 2892 and you divide by 2891, this comes out to be 2892 divided by 2891, and this equals 1.0003459, and then continuing on. But if you go back up to the original equation and you put an 008 in here, so then that becomes let's delete this, and that becomes 2892.0608. So that's like a corrective multiplier here, which is, we just died because of final journey. I forgot about that. 60 seconds are up for us, but that's how you can recognize that this multiplier of final journey occasionally will creep up to this 1.5008. And so then when you take this number divided by 2892, obviously it's like almost exactly 1. So occasionally the better safe than sorry method is to use 1.5008 when you're using final journey, and it's one of those oddities that Vane has because of the floating point precision. In the game files, this is actually called as 1.5. However, in practice, because of how the math is actually calculated, because of the formulas that they have, it actually does float up, because it's not just a like a 2-bit or a 3-bit floating point number or something like that. It's many more digits than like a 2 or 3-bit number that's allowable in the game, and so they have built into it a much longer digit precision point, and so we're able to see that as we go into different setups and things. So now if we know that now that could potentially be there. So if we take our 1105 and we multiply by final journey, and we multiply by halberd mastery, and we multiply by overdrive plus our 902, that should get us 1105 times 1.5 times 1.2 times 1.25 plus 902. That should get us 3388.25. That should be the number, and it should round down to 3388, right? That's what we should expect. So let's see. Let's do this and that and this. So 3388 is what we should expect. And here again, we see we have a 3389. So then you say, well, where's that extra little bit coming from? And you can perturb any of the other values in the equation here, but the one that you can pretty much count on is that if you put an 008 right there on final journey, then that becomes 3389.576. So it's a little bit above, but it starts to get you very close to the base value, instead of being rounding down by a quarter or a half or a third or something like that. So keep that in mind. This is a debate that's kind of going on, but it does happen, and that is the more conservative approach, is to use 1.5008, because that is when you can actually more predict closer how what your final value will be when you're using very, very, very large numbers of multipliers. Like if you're using 6 to 8 to 10 multipliers, using 1.5008 will get you very, very, very close to the actual real number. And none of the other numbers seem to be perturbed as much as Final Journey is, because somehow it is the one that is fluctuating, and the others are very, very rigid, because when you do all of the other values and you don't use Final Journey, things come out to be exact. When you put Final Journey in, you start getting this weird rounding error, and it has something to do with this floating point precision that's happening in the background. Even though it's not like a written part of the code in the blueprint of how Final Journey is constructed, here in the formulas though, when you're actually calculating out the numbers, sometimes there are these oddities that happen, and it's all coming from the fact that Final Journey is part of those additions when you're stacking up multipliers. So here we had 1, 2, 3, 4 multipliers. This is an additive, but it's part of the equation. And then if we add more from like Adrenaline or Jack and Louie and different things, then those that 1.5008 becomes that much more apparent. So if we put on Adrenaline now, and we expect that we would have that 10% more, so if we look at our formula and we add times 1.1 in there, so with the 0.008, we're at 3638, and if we delete the 008, we're at 3636. So see, they start to diverge very far, and so if we look here, 3638, and that is what we would expect, as opposed to the 3636 from the straight up calculations. So the more multipliers you use, the 0.008 starts to become a much more accurate value as you continue to slap on those multipliers. So if we go back to the notepad here, times 1.1 would be in here, and this one was 3638, and if you do 1105 times 1.5 times 1.2 times 1.5 times 1.1 plus 902, that equals 3636. So as you can see, the difference here between the two numbers, it starts to diverge more and more and more apart from each other, the more and more and more values that you add to your character. So if we put on here like survival instinct, for example, and let's see, do we have any other buffs here? Sure, we have flashing fang. That's a good one. So if we look at survival instinct, if you don't know what this does, this adds 200, or it adds 250 to your blood veil, and when you're below half health, and it adds it adds 250, sorry, to your weapon, and it adds 200 to your blood veil. So let me show you that here real quick. So we're at 1105 here, and so that should go to 1355. So if I can math publicly here, let me see. And so 1355, so there you go. And we were at 1169, and now we're at 1369, so it adds 200. So keep that in mind as we go along here. So Halberd Mastery, and so if we add Final Journey and all the things here, we'll do the calculation here real quick, and then we will look at our value. Okay, and then we got to go down below half health, and we'll just look at the value here real quick while we are active, and we're at 6475. So keep that in mind. It's just a number, 6475. Okay, so before we die and everything, so let's start at the beginning. So 1105 times final journey times halberd mastery times adrenaline, or overdrive times adrenaline, plus the 250 on our weapon, plus 1804 plus 200 is 2004 divided by 2, which is going to be 1002. So 1002, and that should equal, so 1105 times 1.5 times 1.2 times 1.25 times 1.1 plus 250 plus 1002. Oh, and then flashing fang, which should be a times 2, right? But the strange part is that because you have final journey involved, this goes to 008, and then the 250 that we were expecting, that gets deleted, and that brings us to 6474.6672, which is roughly the 6475, and that's what we should expect, you know, when we're going through this with the multipliers here. But because we're doing a lot of these multiplications, as you start to stack up all of the multipliers that the game has to offer, and then if you were to add Jack in here, other things would start to happen where you would start to have diminishing returns, and that is where the strangeness of Vane starts to happen, is when you start involving final journey. Some of these interactions of how flashing fang and different things operate, they start to add and subtract and multiply and do different things at strange different times. So that's why I typically will subscribe to the idea that we have a 1.5008 multiplier that is in the game, as opposed to a just flat 1.5 that never changes. Remember, you can't take anything in Vane for granted, and you can't assume anything, and you can't assume at any point in time that what you test in one certain case is the general case for everything else. So in order to find the more general case, you have to test a lot of cases, or put forward a hypothesis that then shows is that hypothesis real or not, and then can you prove it one way or another, and then is there an equation that you can put together that you can find that actually puts that theory to the test, and then can you insert any general case and can you come up with the same answer. So if you would look at all of these buffs here, and you would actually do the calculation per what they should be, like what the real thing should be, based on what we know and what we should be looking at. It should be 1105 times 1.5 for final journey times 1.2 for halberd mastery times 1.25 for overdrive times 1.1 for adrenaline times 2 for flashing fang, and then we should add 250 for survival instinct, and then we should add our 1002. And that should, for our bridge to glory. Now that should come out to be, let me add this in here real quick. That should be 6721.75. And you can see here that the, which would mostly happily round to 6722. So you can see here that 6475 and 6722 are wildly different numbers. And you wouldn't start to notice these divergences if at very low numbers of buffs that you're adding to yourself. So let's go through that again, and we're not going to see we're not going to see the 6722 at all in the value here that we're going up against. We are going to see the 6475, which is not even on our radar of what we should see. 6475, and there it is. And if we heal, if we heal one, we lose the 350 that is on there. So we lose 350, which is our 250 times 1.5, but you'll notice that we're still at 902 here. So it's the 100 from this, and then the 150 or the 250. Sorry, it's the 250 from our survival instinct for the weapon, and then it is the 100 from our blood veil there through Bridge to Glory that we're losing. So we're losing the 350, but the strange thing is that the 350 is built in there, so that tells you that survival instinct is operating correctly. And something about Flashing Fang being the nth number of buffs that we have active here, we start to have a reduction on our gifts. It's no longer a 2, but now it's like a 1.9 value multiplier instead of a 2 times multiplier. So very interesting here how you start to stack the buffs on top of each other in very, very large quantities, and you'll start to notice that you do get a point of diminishing returns. But the strange thing is that Final Journey always rounds higher than what it actually is. So that's why I subscribe to the 1.5008 crowd. And if you're going way above and beyond and crazy with the buffs here, if you're doing Final Journey and you're starting to try and calculate things, start looking at Final Journey as a 1.5008 as a general rule, and in low quantity buff spaces where you only have like one buff or something like that, or 2 buffs, it is definitely a 1.5 flat. But then when you start getting into the 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 buff territory for certain weapons, then things start to go off the rails. So anyways, just wanted to kind of talk through that with you guys a little bit, for you guys to kind of see the differences of this that happen in certain weapons. So anyways, thank you guys for watching. Talk to you later. Bye.